Richard Spencer, probably the most famous white nationalist in this country, maybe even the world, has officially endorsed Joe Biden, saying that the MAGA alt-right moment is over and that Democrats are clearly the more competent bunch. I think he's being completely honest. I think we're going to see a lot of people in the Democratic Party on the left say it's a fake endorsement. He's just trying to make Joe Biden look bad. But I don't believe that's true. I really don't. Richard Spencer has dragged Trump in the past, saying, essentially Trump was a letdown. And now he's saying they need to regroup and come back in another form and that Democrats are more competent. It's very similar to what we hear from Democrats. And what you need to understand is, first and foremost, the Democrats in California are trying to repeal civil rights legislation that prevents discrimination based on race, among other characteristics. It's not at all out of character, in my opinion, for Richard Spencer to come out and make the statements he's making. Let me read you the story, and we'll talk about something really interesting. Democrats have actually started to lose some Democratic Party affiliation, so this shouldn't be surprising to anybody. Newsweek reports. Richard Spencer backs Joe Biden, says MAGA alt-right moment is over. White nationalist Richard Spencer has said he will be backing Democratic candidate Joe Biden in November's election after previously distancing himself from Donald Trump. And that was a while ago. Before we even knew Biden was going to be the nominee, Spencer was saying he was unhappy with Donald Trump. Spencer, who was one of the key figureheads of the alt-right movement, tweeted how he is on Team Joe on Monday, adding a self-made campaign slogan, "Liberals are clearly more competent." In a series of tweets, Spencer further explained his reasoning for backing Biden. He said, "The MAGA alt-right moment is over. I made mistakes. Trump is an obvious disaster. But mainly, the paradigm contained flaws that we now know are that we now are able to perceive. And it needs to end," Spencer wrote. "So be patient. We'll have another day in the sun. We need to recover and return in a new form." In another tweet, he added, "I will never flip on my fundamental principles. My principles were never voting for the lesser of two evils or stopping big government. Walking into certain defeat, even death, is not heroic. It's foolhardy. I have no sympathy for martyrs. I admire winners." I think Richard Spencer, what he's getting at is essentially, under Trump, the media has relentlessly attacked and shined a light on him, and it's been a disaster. Now, I don't know. I'm not going to speak for what he believes, but I'll tell you this. When the Democrats are in charge, Spencer, nobody knew his name. I mean, a lot of people did. He was able to operate, build his movement and do his thing. But with Trump, as soon as Trump comes out, the media was desperate to find a boogeyman. This put the spotlight on Spencer and made him the boogeyman. You remember that famous video where he got punched in the face? It's not good for someone who's trying to build a movement when the media is relentlessly attacking you because of Trump. And of course, Trump not being a white nationalist, Spencer and other white nationalists weren't getting anything they wanted other than negative press attention. So yeah, it absolutely makes sense that at least in that capacity, he would back Joe Biden. But I think there are other issues, too. If you look at what Richard Spencer has actually talked about in the past, he's not laissez-faire capitalist. I think his issues actually are more likely to line up with identitarians. I mean, look, like I said, I don't know if I said it now, but the Democrats are repealing civil rights law in California. I mean, you'd have to imagine white nationalists would be in favor of that, giving them the right to discriminate based on race at various levels of government or in public accommodation. That's probably, look, it's all identitarian, right? Let's read a little bit more. Here's the image that Spencer tweeted. He says, "I'm on Team Joe, Richard Spencer. Liberals are clearly more competent." And I guess you can make these things at Joe's website. They say, "The Southern Poverty Law Center describes Spencer as a suit and tie version of the white supremacists of old." And guess what? Which political party was the suit and tie wearing white supremacists of old? It was the Democratic Party. This is not surprising to me. They mentioned that Spencer rose to prominence when he yelled "Hail Trump" after being greeted with Nazi salutes at an event in Washington shortly after Trump was elected. However, Spencer said earlier this year that he regrets voting for Trump following the assassination of Soleimani. Spencer feared that Trump's approved airstrike, which resulted in the death of Soleimani, brought the U.S. to the brink of war with Iran. He said, "I deeply regret voting for and promoting Trump in 2016. To the people of Iran, there are millions of Americans who do not want war and do not hate you and respect your nation and its history. After our traitorous elite is brought to justice, we hope to achieve peace, reconciliation, and forgiveness," he added. Spencer also led a protest against the Trump administration launching an airstrike on a Syrian airbase in 2017. This is not out of character. The left just tries to make you believe that anybody who's identitarian white identitarian clearly would support Trump. That's not true. Trump is the anti-identitarian candidate. He absolutely is. That's why I recently said I'm going to be voting for him. The Democrats are repealing civil rights law. It's been a long time coming, but they're doing this. We know what they want to do. And again, I mean, look, if you're a white nationalist and you want to be able to discriminate against people, then the Democrats are your party. Well, I got bad news for Democrats. More DNC woes. New poll shows major drop in Democratic Party affiliation. But I want to be fair. It was just after a bump in affiliation. It would seem that the Democrats are losing the gains they made because of the riots. Town Hall says a new poll released Monday from Gallup showed that the 4 days of virtual speeches and minimal fanfare produced by the Democratic National Convention did little to shore up support for the party of Joe Biden and Kamala Harris. In fact, despite the glowing reviews from corporate media of the DNC and its speakers, the Gallup poll showed that Americans claiming to be Democrats or affiliated with the party dropped by 2 points since the same poll was conducted in June. Enthusiasm for the Republican Party, however, increased by 3 points, shrinking the Democratic advantage by a stunning 5 points as the presidential election draws even closer. This is all true. The new poll follows a trend in national polling that has shown a dramatic narrowing of the gap between the Democrats' nominee Joe Biden and President Donald Trump. After months of numbers reflecting Biden as the clear leader, Rasmussen reported on Monday that recent polling also showed the nation's approval of the president was on the rise, sharing that 51% of respondents approved of the job he was doing. The favorable shifting in polling for the president comes amid months of unrest that has included widespread calls from the far left to defund and abolish police departments, abolish ICE, and abolish prisons across the country. Any sane person would hear that and say, What? No, I don't want any of that. It's crazy, isn't it? We'll come back to this, but I want to make sure I show you the actual poll because there's important context. Take a look. In May, Republicans were at 44% affiliation. And Democrats were at 47. So the gap was only a few points. Then there was a major drop off into June, and it's probably having to do with Black Lives Matter. Republicans dropped to 39% and Democrats to 50%. Boy, if they just stopped the riots, they could have taken this one home. But then immediately following that month of riots, they dropped 3 points. They've jumped up about 1 point since then, but Republicans are also recovering. The gap between the two is now about 6 points. It's still pretty good news for Democrats. I mean, look at this. In January, Republicans had the lead. In February, Republicans had the lead. It switched and now it's dropped. So, yeah, I think it's fair to say bad news for Democrats coming into the election. We're only a few months away and the trend is favoring Republicans. Still, the Democrats are in a favorable position. And I think it's fair to say when you see people like Richard Spencer announcing their support for Joe Biden, yeah, the Democrats are getting a lot of people. Let's be real. I think the Democrats might actually make a different play than claiming Spencer's lying. You could come out and do the obvious generic, Richard Spencer is only trying to claim this to smear Joe Biden and make Trump look good. Or they'll say Donald Trump is so awful that even the white nationalists don't want to vote for him. I don't think any of it matters. I think Richard Spencer is being honest about his opinions. I don't think he's playing stupid games. I think he's always held these positions. He's publicly talked about it. He's protested war. He's supported Trump. Then he regretted this and turned away within like a year of Trump being in office. There was no grand play back then. He immediately was like, wow, this is a bad idea. And I think it shows. I think what we're seeing now is that the people who like the crony establishment are going to start backing the crony establishment. People who don't like Trump's, rhetoric, they don't like Trump's policies are going to be pushed away. But mostly I think it's the media that's driving a wedge between the American people and Donald Trump. I think Trump has greatly improved. His speech today was very positive. He didn't swear. He said, I'm not going to use bad words about, I think he was talking about Hillary. And I respect that. I absolutely do. He put out his agenda. His agenda was pretty good. You know what I don't like? I'm tired of establishment politics. So that's why I look at Trump's agenda. I look at the riots and I say, I don't want the Democrats. I don't. And I'm probably one of these people who's drifting away from them as their numbers drop. And it was the riots. Absolutely was the riots. And I think they're about to get worse because of Kenosha. Now they're saying they're going to be deploying National Guard to Kenosha. There's talks about National Guard going to Chicago. Do it. Get it done. We do not want more riots. I don't think they will, though. I think the riots will get bad, and it's going to continue to help Trump. And I think we might be seeing a landslide for the president. I think Trump's agenda is great. There's some things I don't agree with it. If you didn't see my segment, go to youtube.com/timcast. It's a different channel. I did this big thing saying, I'm going to vote for Trump. His agenda is good. It absolutely is. And I can't stand the Democrats flip-flopping. I can't stand their wishy-washy behavior. I think they're not even trying to win. I don't know what their goal is. So I think Trump needs to take it. And I think Trump needs to end the identitarianism of the left, be it, Richard Spencer's white identitarianism or the far left's, whatever identitarianism, just leftist identitarianism. It just needs to stop. We need liberty, like true classical liberalism. And I hope we'll get it. I don't know if Trump is the perfect person to do it, but Biden certainly is not. I'll leave it there. Next segment's coming up in a few minutes. Stick around, and I will see you all shortly.